What if I told you the richest family in American history discovered a money trick so powerful, their wealth still grows even after they're gone? And no, this isn't some conspiracy theory. This is the real financial strategy that built an empire. Now, let's dive in, because today I'm about to share a story that sounds like fiction, but it's 100% real. A story about how one man, John D. Rockefeller, didn't just become wealthy in his lifetime, he engineered a system where his wealth keeps multiplying long after he's dead. And the crazy part? You don't need to be a billionaire to use the exact same strategy. In fact, people are using this same financial cheat code today with a normal paycheck, and they're quietly building generational wealth without lifting a finger. So sit tight. Because once you understand this, you will never look at money or family legacy the same way again. Let me take you back to the late 1800s. Picture this. America is transforming. Oil has become the new gold rush, lighting homes, powering machines, building the foundations of the modern world. And in the middle of this chaotic new world stands a skinny, soft-spoken businessman named John D. Rockefeller. Not a warrior, not a king, not a politician, just a guy who understood one thing better than almost anyone else alive: how money works. Rockefeller didn't become the richest man in history just by owning oil. Lots of people owned oil. He became rich by understanding the structures behind money. He realized something most people still don't understand today. Making money isn't the hard part. Keeping it is. Growing it is, protecting it is. And so he built a financial machine around his family that was so durable, so bulletproof, that it still exists today over a century later. But the real magic wasn't the business. It was the system he built around the business. And this is the part schools never teach you, probably because it makes the IRS uncomfortable. Rockefeller used something that almost sounds illegal because it's so effective. But it's 100% legal. The family trust system. Not one trust, not one will. A network of ironclad financial instruments designed to keep money flowing to future generations without ever being eaten alive by taxes, lawsuits, divorces, or bad decisions. The man didn't just leave his children money. He left them a machine that prints security, prints growth, and prints wealth long after he stopped breathing. So imagine you're Rockefeller for a moment. You're looking at your empire. You're the richest man on earth. You've got more money than some countries. But you look around and see other wealthy families lose everything in just 2 or 3 generations. Their kids overspend. The government taxes half of it. Lawsuits wipe out the rest. And you think, nope, not my family. Not happening. So Rockefeller creates something genius. He takes his wealth and parks it inside trusts that are legally recognized as their own entities. Think of a trust like a vault, one that has its own rules, its own identity, its own protections. The money inside isn't technically owned by a person, it's owned by the vault, which means 3 massively powerful things. First, you can't tax a dead man. Second, you can't sue a vault. Third, no matter how irresponsible a future family member is, they can't burn the entire empire down. The family doesn't own the money. The trust owns the money, and the family members simply benefit from it generation after generation. Let's pause and think about how insane that is. Because most people today don't even know this option exists. They work hard, save money, pay taxes, die, and leave whatever is left to their kids. Then the government takes a chunk, probate takes a chunk, and within 20 years, the money is gone. But Rockefeller set up a system where the money never leaves the trust. It stays protected, and it keeps working. And here's where this becomes even crazier. The trust invests in businesses, stocks, real estate, and ventures that continue to build wealth. That means the trust doesn't just preserve money, it multiplies it. The family receives income through the trust in a controlled, intelligent way. No giant lump sums for a teenager to blow on a Lamborghini. No vulnerable pile of money a lawsuit can target. Just steady, structured, protected generational wealth. That's why you still hear the name Rockefeller today. The man is long gone, but the machine he created is still alive, still spinning, still producing money like a quiet engine in the background of history. But the part that blew my mind, the part that changed how I think about money forever, is that you don't need a Rockefeller-sized fortune to use this strategy. Trusts can be started with way less money than people think. Even middle-class families are using these systems. You can literally set up a trust with the equivalent of a used car. People think trusts are for billionaires because the wealthy don't tell you this stuff. But the secret is simple. The wealthy use trust not because they're rich. They stay rich because they use trusts. And while the trust system protects Rockefeller's wealth from taxes and lawsuits, there was one more thing he did that changed everything. He invested not in luxuries, but in future-proof assets. Instead of chasing shiny toys, he focused on ownership. He owned the railroads that transported oil. He owned the pipelines that delivered it. He owned the storage. He owned the distribution. He basically owned the entire supply chain. So while other people sold oil, Rockefeller sold oil plus everything oil touched. And here's where most people misunderstand wealth building. They think it's about earning. It's not. It's about positioning. Rockefeller positioned himself where money had no choice but to flow into his hands. That's the difference between making money and building a dynasty. Now let me tell you the part of the story almost nobody talks about. By the time Rockefeller retired, he had already donated over $500 million, back when $500 million was worth more than $8 billion today. He built universities, hospitals, research centers. And yet, even with all this giving, the family's trusts kept growing. Because when a trust is structured properly, the growth outpaces the spending. Think about that for a second. Imagine being so financially secure that even if your family spent millions every single year, the money still grows. That's what Rockefeller engineered. By the time his grandchildren were adults, they weren't just inheritors, they were participants in a financial system designed to sustain itself forever. Every year, the trust generates income from investments. That income is distributed according to rules set over a century ago. Those rules can't be changed by future generations. They can't be sabotaged by one irresponsible family member. The trust is the captain, steering the ship long after the founder is gone. Now here's where you come in. Because this video isn't just about the Rockefeller story. It's about how you can use the same principle. Not the billion-dollar version, the everyday version. You see, the real secret isn't the money. It's the structure, the mindset. Rockefeller understood that wealth is fragile when people manage it emotionally, but wealth becomes unstoppable when systems manage it logically. So let's break this down in real-life terms. Instead of just working, spending, saving a little, dying, and leaving your kids a small check, imagine creating a structure where your future kids and their kids receive money automatically from investments you set up today. A structure protected from taxes, a structure protected from lawsuits, a structure that grows no matter what. You don't need Rockefeller money to start a trust. You can start with your first rental property, your first index fund, your first small business. You can create a trust to own your assets instead of owning them personally. Suddenly, your wealth is protected. Suddenly, your money works for you. Suddenly, your children and grandchildren have a safety net built on strategy, not luck. Let me tell you a quick modern example that mirrors Rockefeller's idea. There's a middle-class couple in Texas I read about who started a trust with just $15,000, less than a used SUV. They used that trust to buy a rental property. The rental income flows into the trust reinvests profits into more real estate. 10 years later, that trust now owns 3 properties and generates more passive income than the couple's day job. And when they pass away, the trust continues paying their kids and grandkids forever. That is the Rockefeller method at a micro scale. That is how generational wealth actually works. Every time people say the rich get richer, what they don't see is the structure behind it. Rich people don't just have money. They have machinery. They have legal vehicles. They have systems that turn income into assets and assets into protection. And the moment you start doing that, even at a small scale, you stop thinking like a paycheck earner and start thinking like a legacy builder. So let's bring it all home. The secret behind Rockefeller's wealth that won't die isn't luck. It isn't magic. It isn't some hidden oil vault in a mountain. It's structure, it's protection, it's intentional planning. It's a system that prevents wealth from leaking and ensures it compounds across generations. And you don't need billions to start building your own system. You need awareness. You need discipline. You need to learn the rules of money that school never taught you. Start small. Start with one investment. Start with one asset. Start with one account in a trust. Because the truth is, wealth doesn't follow the smartest people. It follows the most prepared people. If Rockefeller were alive today, he'd tell you the same thing I'm telling you right now. Money is temporary, but systems are permanent. And the moment you build your system, your wealth stops relying on your labor and starts relying on math. And math never dies.